There's something about separation on the twin flame journey that cracks us open in a way nothing else can. It doesn't just break the heart, it breaks illusions. It breaks old ways of being. It breaks the masks we once wore just to feel safe in a world that never really saw us. And if you're walking this path as the divine feminine, you already know how deep that ache can go. You already know what it feels like to hold love in your chest while your counterpart pulls away. You already know what it's like to question your worth, your sanity, your path, all because you feel so much, and they seem so far removed. But here's the deeper truth. Separation doesn't weaken the divine feminine. It activates her. It amplifies her power in ways most people can't even begin to understand. Because when she's stripped of that connection, she's not stripped of her essence. She's stripped of distractions. And that's when the real awakening begins. Let's unpack this slowly, layer by layer. Because what you're going through isn't a breakdown, it's a breaking through. And the more you understand the role of your energy in this phase, the more anchored and empowered you'll feel. Number one, she stops looking for external permission. In union, or even in the chase phase, the divine feminine often gets caught in a cycle of waiting. Waiting for a reply, waiting for a sign, waiting for validation that what she feels is real. It's not because she's weak. It's because her love is so deep and so pure, she can't help but hope that her energy is seen and returned. But once separation sets in, something shifts. At first, it feels like abandonment, like silence, like loss. But as time passes, as the cries go unanswered and the doors stay closed, she stops asking for someone else to reflect her worth back to her. She starts to remember that she doesn't need permission to be who she is. She doesn't need validation to believe in what she feels. She doesn't need a mirrored yes to stand in her knowing. That shift, although painful, is where her real power is born. Because when the external support disappears, the internal structure has to rise. She learns to source her strength from within. She builds emotional muscle. She cultivates spiritual independence. And slowly, she stops giving away her power in the hopes that someone will return it. If you're in that space now, the waiting, the hoping, the not knowing, let yourself feel the ache, but also notice the openings it creates. Notice how much space you have now to focus on you. Notice how every time you bring the energy back to yourself, you start to feel a little less lost. No one is coming to hand you your worth. But the truth is, it was never theirs to give in the first place. And when you stop outsourcing that power, you begin to radiate in a whole new way. That glow, that grounded presence, that's the divine feminine in her full remembering. Number two, she learns to trust her intuition over her fears. Separation is noisy, not because there's so much happening, but because there's so much not happening. You start questioning everything. Was it real? Did I imagine it? Are they gone for good? The mind becomes loud, intrusive, spinning all kinds of stories just to make sense of the silence. But the divine feminine doesn't live in the mind. Her wisdom comes from the body, the heart, the soul. And here's where her power deepens during separation. She has no choice but to stop feeding the fear narrative, because it only leads her in circles. Eventually, she gets tired of the overthinking, tired of trying to decode every action, tired of trying to predict the outcome. And that exhaustion, it becomes her initiation. When she drops out of the mental chaos and tunes back into her body, her knowing, that's when the magic returns. She begins to feel what's true, even if it can't be explained. She begins to sense her twin's energy, even when there's no communication. She begins to understand that love doesn't need constant proof, it just is. This stage teaches her to value the feeling over the facts, because facts can lie, energy doesn't. You might be in that tug of war right now. One part of you believes in the connection deeply, but another part is full of doubt and fear. That's okay. It's normal, but try this. Instead of trying to figure it out, try to feel it through. Let your body speak. Let your intuition rise. Let your inner compass guide you, even if it doesn't make logical sense. Because here's the truth. The divine feminine's power isn't in being right. It's in being aligned. And that alignment becomes stronger when she starts trusting her inner voice more than the world's noise. Number three, she reclaims her sovereignty. Sovereignty, that's a big word, but its meaning is simple: ownership of self. And there's no better teacher of sovereignty than separation. When the divine feminine is in connection, especially in the earlier stages, it's easy for her energy to start revolving around her counterpart, not out of weakness, but out of devotion. She feels them deeply. She sees their potential. She wants to nurture, support, uplift. But somewhere along the way, that devotion can turn into overgiving. And that overgiving often turns into self-forgetting. But separation? That's the reset button. At first, it hurts. It feels like she's been left behind or cast aside. But over time, she begins to feel something she hadn't felt in a while: her own center. She starts waking up to her needs, her dreams, her path. She realizes that she doesn't need to orbit around anyone. She can stand on her own ground, rooted and whole. This is when the divine feminine begins to embody her true energy. Not the people pleaser, not the caretaker, not the romantic idealist, but the sovereign soul who knows how to hold space for others without abandoning herself. That shift creates ripple effects in every area of her life. She starts attracting new opportunities, new connections, new levels of clarity and creativity. She doesn't have to chase anything. She magnetizes it all by simply standing in her truth. If you've been feeling lost or disoriented in this phase, ask yourself, where have I been giving my power away? Where have I forgotten myself in the name of love? Because the real union starts here, the union with yourself. And when that takes root, everything else naturally aligns. Number 4, she unlocks her creative and spiritual gifts. Separation creates space, not just emotionally, but energetically. And when that space isn't filled with constant contact, overthinking, or emotional chasing, something beautiful starts to happen. The divine feminine begins to channel. Her dreams become more vivid. Her insights become clearer. Her creativity flows in ways it never has before. This is no coincidence. When her focus shifts from the twin flame dynamic and turns inward, she taps into a deeper reservoir of power, the power to create, express, and receive spiritual messages. Her soul becomes louder than her wounds. Her gifts begin to unfold. Maybe she starts writing, painting, singing, or speaking in ways she never dared to before. Maybe she becomes more drawn to meditation, energy healing, or astrology. Maybe she starts receiving synchronicities that feel like whispers from the universe. This phase, though lonely at times, becomes the most spiritually fertile ground of her life, because her heart is open, her energy is raw, her spirit is awake, and all of that makes her a powerful vessel. If you're in this season, don't just focus on what's missing. Ask yourself what wants to emerge through you. What message do you carry? What light wants to be expressed? The divine feminine is a natural channel, but sometimes she needs separation to fully remember that. Because when you're not pouring your energy into someone else, you finally realize just how much of it was meant to flow through you. Number 5, she anchors a new frequency for the union. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of the twin flame journey. A lot of people think that union is something that happens only when both twins are perfectly healed, totally ready, and emotionally mature at the same time. They imagine it as a moment when everything finally lines up and both people decide, okay, now we can come together. And yes, healing and growth do matter. Yes, alignment is important. But union doesn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. It begins quietly, behind the scenes, during separation, and most often, it starts with the divine feminine. While she's apart from her counterpart, she's given an opportunity, one that doesn't feel like a gift at first, but truly is. She gets to rise into a higher version of herself. She gets to step out of the cycle of waiting, chasing, and over-explaining. She gets to stop molding herself around someone else's progress. And instead, she starts holding a completely new vibration, one rooted in clarity, peace, and self-possession. She's no longer caught in emotional highs and lows based on whether her twin reaches out or not. She's no longer trying to control the outcome or force things to move faster. Instead, she creates stillness inside herself. She builds inner trust. She works through her wounds without needing someone else to validate or soothe them. She becomes her own anchor, calm, steady, and grounded. And something powerful happens in that space. She starts holding the union energetically, even when it hasn't manifested physically. She becomes the container for it, not by trying to make it happen, but simply by being who she truly is. Her energy becomes clean, clear, whole. She stops leaking power through overthinking and overgiving. She simply is. and that presence is incredibly magnetic. Even if her twin is distant or with someone else, that frequency reaches them. Not in a loud or obvious way, but subtly, through dreams, emotions, sudden waves of clarity or longing. It shifts them on a soul level, because twin flames are never truly disconnected. Their souls are always in communication. So when one rises in frequency, the other feels it, even if they don't understand what's happening consciously. This is why the divine feminine doesn't have to chase, beg, or plead. She doesn't have to prove anything. She doesn't have to drag the connection forward. When she stops trying to fix the journey and instead becomes the journey, everything changes. Her energy becomes the blueprint of love in its purest form, open, sovereign, and unattached. She radiates strength without hardness, softness without self-abandonment. And from that space, she draws in not just her counterpart, but everything that matches her frequency. Her life begins to reflect her inner growth. New relationships, opportunities, and soul connections appear. She's no longer waiting to be chosen. She's choosing herself every day. And that self-devotion makes her glow in a way no amount of effort ever could. So if you feel like you're doing the heavy lifting, holding the energy, doing the work, staying present while they pull away, you're not crazy. And you're not alone. What you're doing isn't one-sided. It's foundational. You're laying down the spiritual framework for the reunion before it ever shows up in the 3D. And that work is sacred. That work is the union. You are the lighthouse. You don't have to run after the ship. You just have to keep shining. And when the time is right, your light will be the only thing they can see. Separation feels like loss, like something's gone wrong, like everything you thought you were building together just collapsed in your hands. But what if it's not a setback? What if it's not the end? What if separation is the beginning of your greatest transformation? This part of the journey isn't meant to punish you. It's meant to awaken you. It's the part where you start becoming who you were always meant to be, outside of the roles, the hopes, and the illusions. It's the part where your soul starts leading instead of your fear, where your heart breaks open just enough to let in more light, more truth, more of your essence. You're not meant to stay stuck in longing. You're meant to let that longing teach you something. Let it open your eyes. Let it show you the parts of you that still need your love. Let it push you deeper into your own soul until you discover that what you've been waiting for is you. Every time you choose presence over panic, softness over control, truth over illusion, you are healing the bond. Not just for yourself, but for the entire connection. You're not waiting for them to come back. You're creating the space where love can live, whether they're in your arms or not. And here's the wild thing. The more you focus on becoming whole within yourself, the less desperate the union feels. The less you cling, the more you know, the more you trust, the more you flow. Eventually, you stop counting the days. You stop rereading old messages. You stop wondering if you're doing something wrong, because you realize you were never abandoned. You were being guided back to your own soul. And that realization, that's what makes you unstoppable. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not behind. You are being prepared. You are not forgotten. You are being refined. The divine feminine doesn't lose herself in separation. She finds herself there. She doesn't lose power without her twin. She awakens her power through that distance. And when she rises, calm, clear, radiant, she doesn't just wait for union. She becomes the living embodiment of it. And that, my love, is the kind of magic that moves mountains.